Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to dye some double-stranded sock blanks as an add-on to the 2019 Summer Mini Skein mini-series. While these aren't mini skeins, you can create some really cool gradient and fade effects when you're dyeing sock blanks. Double-stranded sock blanks are awesome because when you unravel them, you will get two matched skeins of yarn. So it doesn't matter if between two pans the placement of dye is a little different, within one blank you will have a matched dye lot. And it's so fun to see how these colorways turn out. I want to revisit the pool party that I started exploring in the last video. Bright pops of pink and green with a bunch of different blues and turquoise colors. This colorway, even using the same colors and a similar technique of applying dry dye low immersion, will be substantially different from the full skeins. And that's because since this is a knit blank that will be unraveled, if we have, a patch of pink at one end, it's not going to be repeating through the whole blank. And I'm just really excited to see how these turn out. I pre-soaked my sock blanks in some plain tap water for a couple of hours, but in general I find doing 20 or 30 minutes to be sufficient. Currently, each of my dedicated dye pans has 8 cups of water, and I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of white vinegar, which is equivalent to a 1/4 cup. These are dedicated dye pans, which means that all of the tools and equipment I use today are used only for dyeing yarn and aren't used for food. If you would like to learn more about any of the equipment or yarn that I use in this video, you can find affiliate links in the video description. I'm not really wringing out any water when I'm moving the sock blanks from the pre-soaked to the pans. I want there to be plenty of water in here, and yeah. Okay, now let's open up and arrange these blanks a little bit. I want them to go into the pan the long way, and there's not enough space for the whole blank to fit in here, so there will be folds and wrinkles, which is going to help with our pool party theme, because these wrinkles end up giving you a feel that it feels almost like marble or watercolory, and I think it's really, really fun. Yep, so I'm laying them out end to end and scrunching them up pretty randomly. So even within one pot, this will give us some difference between each of the skeins. Just because of the way that they are arranged and folded, there will be some variation between them, but they will be similar. There's a lot of water in the pan. Most of the yarn is underwater. There's a few spots that are more at the surface. So when I add dye powder, it's going to spread out, because in a lot of places it'll hit the water first and spread out. And then in some places I'm going to tap it to sort of help move things around and move it along. But I think that we could get some really, really cool effects. Okay, I'm laying this one out, and I can readjust the folds as needed. But I haven't actually dyed 3 blanks in a pan at the same time before. I have done 2, and I really, really liked the effects. They were similar, they were related, but definitely not the same. And I'm planning on letting the colors speak to me a bit as we go. And I'm just really, really excited to see how this will come out. And just like all my videos, it's always a learning experience for me. But so just trying to make sure things aren't too bunched up in places, but I will be sort of poking it around, maybe between different dye applications. But the nice thing with the blank is I'm not planning on flipping this over. If there is some resist from the way they are laid in the pan, I am totally okay with that today. Each of these steam pans is across 2 burners on my stovetop. So now I'm going to start heating this up, and once we start seeing some bubbles, I'll come in with my gloves and respirator and goggles, and we'll start adding on some dye. I had stored a lot of the pigments that I had used last week by stacking the cups with some tin foil. I wiped off the bottoms and then did some quick looks to double check the colors, but I'm pretty sure I have them in the right order. We've got Purple Pop, Sour Apple, Bight Aqua, Saphire Blue, Frozen, and then True Turquoise. When I go back into the containers to get more color, I will use a fresh spoon, but I like having the dye powder in cups, that way I can go back and forth between colors without having to wash my gloves in between. I am going to keep an eye on the levels. We are starting to maybe see some bubbles, but we are not like super hot yet. But let's get started. I am going to start with some Purple Pop down here by this bottom edge. What I'm doing right now is I'm adding on the powder sort of gently. I'm going to let it spread out the way it wants. I will come push and touch it in a little bit, but I just wanted to start off with a little bit down there. And I'm sort of debating. If it were just one blank in here, then I might do some random patches of color, but I do want these colorways to be somewhat related. So I'm going to go really light and watch how that dye, when it hits that water first, how that spreads. And so there are definitely going to be differences here between each of these colors, from just the way that they're positioned and the way the colors will spread, you know, whether we'll see speckles versus more pops of color. And that is all going to vary. And there's still a little bit of pink in my hand as I go to our Sour Apple. Ooh, and look at that river. See how it's coming down? That's so cool. So I'm going slow. I'm going to let the colors see sort of what they want to do and where to go, and we're going to be layering more color on this whole thing. Let's add a little more green. Like we might go over with some more small, like random patches of green or pink later on. These colors tend to be a little more, well, the Purple Pop is punchy, but they're going to tend to be a little more subtle compared to some of the other colors that we're using. Do some turquoise. Giving it a good amount, and we're going to come in again and touch this in a little bit. We're going to come in, and I want this to end up being like really saturated and have a lot of color, but I'm also wanting the colors to sort of feel their way and do a little bit of what they want to do. That's the True Turquoise. Here is some Saphire Blue. And I'm going to add more. We're starting with just little bits, sort of seeing where this colorway wants to take us. Now, one of these blues definitely did not dissolve in the best way, and that's why we had so much bleeding at the end. So once I hit the end of this project, I am going to go and add a lot of water, so that way we can do some full immersion to try to get everything as dissolved as possible before we move on. Bight Aqua. Put some of that right here. The Bight Aqua is very similar to the True Turquoise, but I think it might be a slightly less potent. But it is more like that teal color. And then finally finally, the last color that we're going to be playing around with today is Frozen, and I'm going a little heavier with this one. Frozen is a nice bright blue. It doesn't really have as much of the turquoise feel in it. I know it tends to strike pretty fast, except you can see where it's hitting the water, things are going to blend, things are going to move around, and that is going to give us some really, really fun feels to the whole thing. I might go ahead right now, like as I'm watching what these colors are doing, and add some Frozen in here. And then we'll probably start touching on these colors a bit and submerging them and letting them spread. Okay, so why don't I go wash my gloves? Okay, let's have some fun. I'm going to start by poking in with those pinks. A lot of color has set. There's definitely some pink moving around. But a lot of that color, and we did less pink up here, has set already. I definitely could go in more with more dye, and I plan to. Like, if I were to remove this right now, there would be a lot of white left. But here, there we go. We've got some good, this true turquoise. So we're still going to have some really dark speckles in there. I'm not sure, yeah, on camera you can still see like it's dark from where I added that powder, but by doing this we're letting that color sort of spread out a little bit more. Let's see. Saphire Blue. Some of these other colors I was a little more gentle with, but I can go a bit bigger. We just wanted to get sort of a, ooh, that's pretty, a preliminary layer, and we'll be mixing them on top of one another, and I think it's going to be really, really pretty. Oh, interesting. Maybe that's our culprit. So over here, I'm not sure if you can see, but I do see some specks that haven't quite dissolved. And I believe that's where oh, the Frozen? This Frozen hadn't given me any trouble in the past. So, ooh, okay, so we will see. Now, let's start having some fun. Let's bring in some more of this turquoise. I really like what this color is doing. And so by letting these colors mix together on the yarn, that is another thing that is giving us these really layered colors, versus if they were mixing in the powder, then you wouldn't see quite so many different tones. Okay, well, maybe I'll just put a little more down here. I think this is the true turquoise. This will give us some more, like, little speckly doodahs. Here's our Bight Aqua. And I'm going to go in a little bit heavier. It's very similar to that turquoise, I think. But since it is, I think, overall supposed to be a more pastel color, it's not giving us that same oomph. And you can see that there's some differences between our two pans, just based on how things are laid out. And that is totally fine. Saphire Blue is the color I'm going to need to go get more of. Okay, good, I'm recording. I'm now tapping from the cup because there's a little too little for me to take out with my hand. And this can help me decide if I want more. But I now can take my spoon and really like move this color around that area. But again, it'll start striking to the yarn, but there's like resist in areas. So there's going to be stuff that we will see behave a bit differently. So those blues and turquoise colors might mix in together a little bit, but there's pockets where they won't. And I think that that is super, super fun. I will be poking that a bit more. I do think I want a little bit more purple. But now I'm going to go sort of trying to add a little bit to each, hopefully, each blank. And this is where there'll be some differences because I'm trying to approximate where I think those edges are located to give it some like hints of some of this purple color. Just little bits. And so some of them might have a little more than others, but hopefully I was able to hit all three with those little bits and pops. And here at this interface I can add a little more. And also with the sour apple, and I chose the sour apple, let's add a little more up here, but I chose that instead of a brighter green because I know that there were so many blues that were in here that it would end up, I didn't want everything to feel super, super teal. I mean, I did want it to feel super teal, but I wanted there to be some like green elements in here, and I hope that that makes some sense. Just again trying to add some hints of green into some of those other areas. Okay, frozen. Interesting if it's the frozen that was causing me the trouble last time. And I'm going to go a little heavy in with the frozen up here. We're due for another like dunking shortly, but I really, really like what's happening, and it takes all of my strength to not move the yarn. I am going to do like this edge because I want some of those colors to move, but I don't really want to poke where I had some of those extra, well, I guess I am sort of poking where I had some of those extra pinks, but I don't want to poke it too much. So I sort of want to let that, let's poke it now. There's been some time. Ooh. So pretty. Doesn't this feel like a pool party? I think that some of the contrast may have been up too high, so I'm not sure if you can really appreciate these bright colors and swirls through this theme, but it's beautiful. Okay, I have more plans for both of these pans. I don't think it's done at all. I think that, well, there's some blue on my spoon, but I think that we still have, oh, okay, I'm seeing some blue powder, and with that color, yeah, there's something a lot down here that's just not dissolved. Interesting. It's nice to know. A lot of the colors have, in fact, bound, but oof, see that pink below? That's cool. Yeah, there's paler colors down below. Because these colors just aren't penetrating that deeply. Which means I sometimes worry about going too big. But it means I could go bigger. Okay, I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes and then we'll come back. I am having a massive internal debate right now. because if I peek in here, oh, that's pretty. I'm curious how pastel these regions are. Oh, I guess there's like a lot of movement. Okay, because I was debating just like picking them up and moving them entirely. But, okay, you know what? If I think that they're too pastel, after I remove and wash them, I can always over dye them and I can like put them in through another round. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and add the other color that I want to add in here. And yeah, I think that that's a good plan.
So here's what I'm gonna do now. I've got a little bit of blue powder in here. I'm gonna go dissolve this in some water and then pour that on. Okay, I am not sure if this is completely dissolved, but I am adding some of the Saphire Blue on this like liquid. So I don't know if the colors might move a little further or what. And let's try pouring some. And patting it. And I'm pouring some. I know a lot of it is going onto this pink. And then patting it on both of them. And then adding a little more on top. There's a little left, so I'm going to add it sort of there where the blue colors were before. A little bit more. Okay. There's a lot more Bight Aqua powder, but I'm going to go do the same thing. This is both more concentrated and less, because there's less pigment in here than there was in, say, Saphire Blue. But I am pouring it on to just give some more pigment spread. Oh, this is awesome. And a great way to use up some of these leftover colors. I had a lot more true turquoise left, so I just took a splotch of powder. Alright, I am going to spoon on some true turquoise. Into this area, and I know I'm covering up some of that green and pink, but I really want this to be about the blues, and I know there is some pink in the middle. And some of it might strike fast, some of it won't, but I guess I don't want to see pastels on the surface, if that makes some sense. This is pretty. I probably will go through with a few more pink pops in a little bit. Oops. This is really, really fun. I hope that I'm not layering too much like at the bottom, and so then there's a lot less color at the top. But I guess that also wouldn't be like the worst thing ever. Okay, there's a fair bit of frozen powder, so we'll use some of this towards the top. So I'm now just dropping that off before I check. This is striking pretty fast. Yeah, there's still going to be some like good like pastels and like movement in here. So I think that we should be fine. Where I might need a little more. I guess I might go over like this green a little bit. Yeah, because if I look, there's still turquoise. Okay, I think I'm happy because a lot of times, like, I'll add some color and I'll be like, oh, I could have added more. Like, maybe I should have added more. And so that's always like a hard balance to strike. And when I'm coming in with the, like, I could have added more, I should have added more, yeah, I'm going to add a tiny bit more of our purple pop just to give some more flecks of color. But I'm trying to add just a little bit, and it's really, some of the pinks might spread out through the bottom, but I think that a lot of it also just will be in little areas because some of the more purple sections won't move around quite as much. And maybe like one. Did I add a little bit in that one? Yeah. Okay. I want to give us a few more little punches. Whoops. Of this sour apple. I have to keep forgetting that I've got sort of like this or that I'm dyeing 6 different blanks here. I guess it's funny that I'm adding green on top of the frozen where there was less turquoise. But I think that that's okay. Okay. There. I think this is feeling like a pool party. Before I go and I let all this sit, I am going to add more vinegar. 2, 3, 4, 1. And let's add a 5th. Alright, I'm adding some more vinegar to help the colors that are present strike. But I know there's also some particles in here that have not dissolved. And I don't know if the only way to sort of get some of those out is to rinse the blanks and then soak them again to stop the bleeding, or if me increasing this water level until the pan is, you know, right at like that level, if that amount of water and therefore movement will help some of those colors absorb. But I'm going to go ahead and let things sit sort of where they are for 15 minutes. It's been 15 minutes and I'm going to reduce the heat again, but I do want to check on some of these areas where I see some insoluble stuff. I think you can barely see some of those little particles in there. And I don't know why they're not dissolving, and I tried taking them to the sink and adding them to some water and I couldn't get them to dissolve. So I'm not quite sure if that's like a bad batch or what. What we will try is adding a lot of water. I'm planning on adding 12 cups of water to each pan. Okay, that's a lot of new water, and oh, it is actually still pretty warm. I was considering sticking my hands in there, but it is a lot warmer than I thought. Okay, a lot of the dye itself, with the exception of those little particles, has cleared. But I want to give an opportunity for things to move around as needed. And up there you can see a lot of those particles. There they are, just not dissolving. Maybe we'll be able to leave some behind here in this pan. But I think that you can see some of the cool real pops of color that we have in here as we're moving our yarn through. At this stage, there is plenty of space to move these blanks through the water. I think most of the color has absorbed. I'm not seeing like a bunch of like pink residue in there, just these blue things that for some reason aren't dissolving now,
but probably will bleed when I go to try to rinse it. I have no idea what it is. What it is that's doing it, but I think, goodness, what do I want to do? I think these colors are beautiful at least. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add 2 cups of vinegar to each container, which should up that acid concentration. And I'm gonna bring it back up to a little bit below a boil, maybe a soft boil, and let these blanks sort of sit in this full immersion situation for, goodness, I think I'll leave it in there for 30 minutes. So a long time. And we'll see if anything happens with those little particles. I will come and move things periodically, but I wonder if this will help prevent the massive amount of bleeding that I saw on the other yarn. And don't forget, what I did there to fix it was I rinsed the yarn, put it in a pot of water with a ton of vinegar, heated it up and let it cool down completely in the water, and then there was no bleeding after that, or minimal bleeding that stopped. So I'm hoping that we'd be able to do something similar. I just can't tell you what it is about that powder that isn't dissolving, because it's not something that was growing in a stock solution or something, because this is powder fresh from the container. And I am perplexed, and I noticed this in the past one. So maybe one of these colors does need to be filtered after it's dissolved and isn't good for speckles, but we will see. I am really, really excited with each of these colorways. You can see one full blank here. We've got like more green and more pink on the other. I think it's awesome. So yeah, we'll see if this helps at this stage or if that pre-rinse is going to be necessary. After 30 minutes, there are a couple of those particles left, but most of them are actually gone. I have come and sort of moved the yarn every so often. I'm not sure if this is going to do the trick. I'm optimistic. I will say, right now looking at it, one pan feels like it's a lot more purple than the other, but we'll see once we get all this yarn out and dry. I am now going to turn off the heat from both, or I guess all 4 burners, and I'm going to let this cool completely. I want it to get to just a cool room temperature, and I know this will take several hours, but again, we are not seeing any blue bleeding in here right now. If anything, there's a little bit of pink, which I think happens when water is warm, and that should stop. So fingers crossed for me. I'll come back when the blanks are cool and we're ready to wash them. It is now the moment of truth. The dye bath is clear, the water is cool. I still see some floaties, but a lot less. Oh, cross your fingers for me. Okay. Oh, I'm holding my breath, but I do see the lightest hint of bleeding. And if that's all we end up seeing, I will be really happy. But I think the true test comes now with some soap. I'm holding my breath here. Maybe I just used way too much dye. There is a little bit of bleeding, but I have squeezed this out and it is not bright blue. And friends, that's a win. Don't let me speak too soon. I am going to keep rinsing these out, and then I will put them through the spin dryer, and then we'll come back and look at the 6 blanks. before we unravel them, but oh thank God. This is flying about of bleeding. All right, I am going to rinse it a few more times, put it through my spin dryer, hang up the blanks to dry, and then we'll come and take a look at them before we unravel some. Oh, you guys, here are the finished blanks, and there really is this underwater quality to it. Like if you have something on the floor of a pool and you're trying to see it beneath the surface, but there's a little bit of waves and ripple. I love it. There is definitely some amount of, not gradient necessarily, but asymmetry here. At one end there's a lot more pink, at the other end there's a lot more green, and some mixture in between. And on the pink end it's a little more purpley, a little more blue, and the other end there's more of that turquoise and teal color. I want to zoom in a bit along one batch. This is so pretty, and I think it's really hard for me to capture exactly what it's looking like on camera. It is a lot more saturated than it feels from what I'm seeing on the monitor. I'm happy there was so much color that penetrated so deeply. I think I definitely could have used a lot more dye on the blank. I think that, I saw so much pigmentation on top, I was a little nervous, but I'm so glad that I got that effect that I really, really wanted. Now let's go take a look at the next set of 3. Batch 2, and I'm honestly not quite sure which pan was which, but this one has a little bit more green and a little bit less pink. Like it feels like there's more yellow over on, especially near the left-hand edge. You see more of that sour apple green, and it feels slightly less turquoise at that end. Still absolutely stunning, still has a very similar feel. There's just definitely a difference. I brought one from the first batch over, and honestly, the difference is super subtle. You can see that this blank right here has a little bit less of that green, of the brighter green. It feels more turquoise and teal, and I think that the pink section down here, it feels more pink and less close to a purple. But overall, they came out really similarly. I really hope that if you purchased one of the 2019 summer samplers, you really enjoyed it. I am not sure if there is any yarn left in the shop from this series, but it's worth going and checking because there could be some bonus skeins from this series and maybe even some intact samplers. So head on over to the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. You can find links in the video's description and iCard. And you should also keep an eye out because sometime soon I will be announcing the 2019 Hanukkah sampler. Now I am going to go unravel one of the blanks and show it to you next to the intact blank and intact blank from that same batch. Here is the awesome speckled gradient next to a sock blank that was pretty similar. This one was the closest to the one that I unraveled. You absolutely can see a gradient in here from more green to intermediate teals and purples all the way to a more pink finish. You know I love double-stranded blanks because no matter what variation there is between the blanks in the pan, we know that one blank will unravel to give us a beautiful matched set. And this matched set is just stunning. I hadn't shown you the wrong side of the blank yet, but this also very much looks like shimmering reflections on the surface of water. So where are all the really light patches that come in and give us these awesome speckles? I believe the resist that we see is coming from the resist of the stitches themselves. So that space from where the yarn is touching yarn, the colors were striking fast enough that gave us this beautiful mottled effect in our blank. Some people don't love this, but honestly, this effect is one of my favorite parts of sock blanks. And I love taking advantage of the ways you can get this little variation of color. And I know that this yarn will turn into something really spectacular. Here's another look at the two batches. One, you see a lot more of the pink, and in the other one, you feel a lot more of the green. But they are definitely sisters, and honestly, I think that you could create, even if you were going to use two blanks, you could create something really, really wonderful. The blank I unraveled is similar to the batch from on top. So if I were going to unravel the one on the bottom, we would see a little less green towards the outside and a lot more of the pink towards the middle. How could I forget to show you the unraveled sock blank next to one of the skeins of the limited edition sock yarn? Both of these used the same kind of color scheme, but they are substantially different. The sock blanks ended up being less saturated, but they've got this sort of mottled, speckled feel that goes throughout. The skeins have a little more non-repeating colorway, but they definitely don't have the same kind of gradient that we see in our blanks. Is there some speckling in our high twist superwash PFL nylon yarn? Absolutely, but not like what we see here in our unraveled blanks. And so this is how we got two colorways. They have the same name, but they are substantially different because of the technique that went into them. So I guess I could call this my pool party collection or something like that. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I really, really hope that you all enjoyed the 2019 Summer Mini Skein mini-series. Sure, these two bonus videos don't include any minis, but I still think it's a lot of fun, and I had a blast celebrating summer. Once again, I would like to give a huge thank you to all of the ChemKnits patrons. Your support unlocked this awesome series, and I just had so much fun. Let me know what you thought, and if I should try to plan on creating some kind of summer mystery sampler again next year. If you want advance notice of when the Hanukkah samplers will go on pre-sale, this is a perk for ChemKnits patrons. At certain levels, you get advance notice, not just of big restocks, but every restock I do in the shop. And yeah, it's a way that if there's a yarn that you particularly love from one of my sneak peeks, you can know that it's there and maybe get there before anywhere else. Because with the exception of these samplers and sort of holiday specials, I tend to do a lot of one-of-a-kind colorways. You can find links to my Etsy shop, to my Patreon, and everything in the video description and iCard. I'm standing here behind the camera gesturing wildly like you can see me, even though I am off camera today. But I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed this series, so make sure that you subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel if you haven't already. Give the video a like and tap that bell icon to turn on notifications so that way YouTube can let you know each time I post a new video. Outside of special fun series like these ones, I release new videos on Tuesday and Friday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Now that I'm signing off, there is one thing left that I have to do for this yarn. Besides package it up and wrap and pack all the samplers, that I still have to do. But with this blank, I need to go and soak it in some tap water to help relax the crimp. Whenever you unravel a sock blank, the yarn will be a little wavy, and so after you unravel it onto a niddy noddy, if you just soak it in some plain tap water for a short period of time, that crimp will relax. Sure, there might still be a slight wave, but it is a lot less likely to get tangled. And so that's the way that I deal with that. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.